But Rupert, what happens to manifestation then? When the mind goes back to its origin?
Or what happens to you when you fall deeply asleep at night? What happens to your world when you fall deeply asleep? In other words, when the activity of your mind ceases.
There's really something that's swirling around in my head now. It's like, if I follow that, if the mind are dreaming, but it forgets the dream when I'm awake again, right? So what's the purpose of dreaming when I have to do it again? I can't even ask the right
dream. Would you do you agree that your mind, relatively speaking, is capable of an infinite number of dreams at night? You could have any dream.
Yeah.
So, but at night, one of those dreams comes into actuality at a time. So the purpose of dreaming is it enables your mind to actualize or realize the potential that lies within it. And each of your dreams is a realization of the infinite potential of your individual mind. Likewise, each of our individual minds is an actualization of the infinite potential that lies in consciousness. In other words, in religious language, each of our minds is the activity through which God sees itself as the world. Without the activity of each of our minds, God or infinite consciousness is not able to know itself as the world.
So what is coming back from forgetting itself and then remembering itself is the memory of what it is itself, right?
Can you say that again?
Yeah, I'll try. I really got spaghetti brain right now. It's following the purpose of forgetting itself is to remember its potential.
Yeah,
and then returning to itself again. It must have the remembering of what it learned of its potential back. No, I can't really.
The infinite by itself can only know the infinite.
Yeah.
Something that is infinite cannot know something that is finite. So in order to know finite experience, that is the world, a finite object has to be known from the point of view of a finite subject. You can't have an infinite subject and a finite object. There's no room in the infinite for the finite. In the infinite, there's only room for the infinite. In order to know a finite object, such as the world, that object has to be known from the perspective of a finite subject. So consciousness has to divide itself in two. If it wants to know anything other than itself, knowing itself is not a problem. It doesn't need our mind to know itself. It knows itself by itself. But if it wants to know anything other than itself, such as a world, it has to divide itself in two. One part that knows, the subject I, and another part that is known, the object world. And that is exactly what your mind does when you fall asleep at night. In order to know something other than your experience in Buckland Hall, your mind has to divide itself in two. One part that knows, that is the apparently separate subject of experience in the dream, and the dreamed world. In other words, your own mind divides itself into a subject and an object in order for the dream world to be known. And then when you wake up in the morning, your mind folds the subject and object back up inside itself and returns to the knowledge of itself.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
So the subject-object relationship is the means by which, the activity by which, that which is undivided and therefore infinite and whole, in which there are no parts and therefore no objects or selves. It is the subject-object relationships is the means by which, the activity by which, the infinite divides itself in two and manifests itself as the world. But in order to manifest itself as the world, it has to seem to know that world from the perspective of a separate subject of experience in that world. And that's what each of us are. Separate, apparently separate subjects of experience, from whose imaginary point of view, God knows itself as the world. So what each of us is seeing now is the inside of God's mind.